Hey everyone, and welcome to another deep dive. Today we're heading over to Zimbabwe.
Ooh, Zimbabwe.
Yeah, to take a look at online education,
Right.
specifically through this organization called Clad Online School.
Sounds interesting.
It is, and I think it's really fascinating to see how this demand for tech-savvy learners is changing the education landscape, and we're going to unpack what that actually looks like on the ground.
Awesome.
Yeah, so we've got a whole bunch of articles, parent testimonials,
Well, cool.
even some research papers all about online learning and trends.
Great.
So let's just jump right in.
Let's do it.
So Clad Online School.
Yeah.
What is it?
Well, what's really cool is that they're offering both the Cambridge and the ZimSec curriculums, but totally online.
Wow.
Yeah. And, for those maybe who aren't familiar, ZimSec, that's the Zimbabwe School Examinations Council.
Right.
And their curriculum is like the standard for all primary and secondary education in Zimbabwe.
Okay.
So by offering both, they're catering to a pretty wide range of students and aspirations,
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought about it it's like they're bridging a gap between international standards and the local system.
Exactly.
That's super interesting.
Yeah.
But what's the big deal about online access in Zimbabwe specifically?
Okay, yeah.
Is it really that different from traditional schools?
Well, think about the geography of Zimbabwe, especially those rural areas. Getting to a good school often means long commutes, unreliable transportation, and for a lot of families, it's just not possible.
Right.
So CLAD's model, it kind of removes those barriers. As long as you've got an internet connection, you can access quality education. It doesn't matter where you live.
Okay.
Which is pretty major,
I see the appeal,
Yeah.
but their tagline
Oh, yeah.
is "We do it the way it should be done." It's a pretty bold statement.
He is bold, yeah.
What are they doing differently?
Well, one thing that really jumps out is their emphasis on qualified tutors. And this is key because teacher quality and shortages are a real issue in many parts of Zimbabwe,
Yeah.
sadly. So it seems like they're tackling this head on by making sure their online educators meet super high standards.
Okay.
They also highlight their comprehensive curriculum coverage,
Uh-huh.
which suggests they're not cutting any corners or just focusing on the popular subjects, which is nice.
That's interesting
Yeah.
because it addresses a real need within the Zimbabwean education system.
Right.
It's not just about being online.
Yeah.
It's about using the technology to improve the quality of education itself.
100%, yeah. And they're not just replicating a traditional classroom online. They're really embracing the possibilities of online learning, so they're emphasizing this competency-based approach.
Okay, competency-based education. I've
Yeah.
heard that term a lot lately. What does it actually mean in this context?
It's about moving away from just time spent in class, or memorizing facts and figures. It's about actually mastering those skills. So instead of just passing a test, a student might have to prove their understanding by applying that knowledge to a real-world project.
So it's less about ticking boxes,
Right.
more about proving you can actually use what you've learned.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And online platforms like Clad, they're really well suited for this because they offer that flexibility
Yeah,
and personalization that you need.
makes sense.
Yeah.
It seems like online learning could be like a natural fit for this kind of outcome-focused approach.
Yeah, it really is. And it's actually something a lot of education systems around the world are moving towards.
Really?
Yeah, not just Zimbabwe. It's all about equipping students with the skills they need to succeed in the 21st century, not just acing standardized tests.
Now, Clad also talks a lot about the convenience and self-paced nature of online learning, allowing students to focus on their individual needs, which I can totally see the appeal of, especially for busy families, students who learn at different speeds, all that.
Yeah.
But is there more to it than just convenience?
Oh, absolutely. This ties into this bigger trend called personalized learning,
Okay.
which acknowledges that one-size-fits-all education, it just doesn't work.
Right.
Students have different learning styles, strengths, challenges.
Of course.
So online platforms allow for greater customization, letting students learn in ways that work best for them.
So it's not just about learning where you want,
Yeah,
but also how you want.
exactly. And this could be especially beneficial in a place like Zimbabwe, where access to specialized teachers or resources, might be a little limited.
Yeah.
So an online platform can really help fill those gaps and create a more tailored learning experience.
Okay, so we've talked about the curriculum, the focus on qualified teachers, and this shift toward competency-based and personalized learning.
Yeah.
But what about the actual teaching methods? Is it just endless Zoom calls and dry lectures?
Actually, Clad specifically highlights their use of short video clips in their teaching.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and this isn't just about keeping things entertaining.
Right.
There's a real pedagogical reason behind it.
Okay.
Research has shown that video learning, it can be really effective, especially for visual learners.
Oh, yeah, totally. A visual learner, I'll take a documentary over a textbook any day.
Right. And there's a reason for that.
Okay, why?
It all comes down to how our brains process information.
Oh.
When we see and hear something simultaneously, it creates a much stronger memory trace. Videos cater to different learning styles and can make complex concepts way more accessible.
Right.
Plus, they can be paused, rewound, revisited,
Of course.
which gives students a lot more control over their learning,
Yeah, that makes sense. So it's
Yeah.
not just about convenience, it's about making learning more effective.
Totally.
But what about the parents?
Yeah.
They're a big part of this too, right?
They're a huge part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Clad really emphasizes the role parents play in making sure their kids are comfy using technology for learning. It's a big change from that traditional model where you just kind of drop your kids off at school and assume the teachers will handle everything.
Yeah, it's like parents are becoming more active participants in the learning process, almost like co-pilots in their child's educational journey.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way to put it.
But that's a big responsibility.
It is. It is. It can be super exciting, but also potentially daunting for those parents. They might have to learn alongside their children, troubleshoot any technical problems, and find ways to integrate online learning into their family routine.
Right. And speaking of parents, Clad has some really compelling testimonials on their website.
Oh, cool.
One that caught my eye was Dee Chimordo's. She's talking about her son.
Yeah.
And how he not only developed his computer skills, but also became more responsible and even started teaching her some of the math concepts he was learning.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Right.
What a great example of how online learning can empower students.
Yeah.
It's not just about passively consuming info, but actively engaging with it. Even becoming a teacher themselves.
Totally.
And it kind of speaks to the potential for online learning to create this ripple effect, impacting not just the student, but the family and their community as well.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it is.
I'm also curious about Ginaro's testimonial.
Yeah.
They mention how their son's reading improved dramatically.
Oh, wow.
And his confidence just soared after joining Clad Jr.
That's amazing.
It's like online learning unlocked something for him.
Yeah, and, these testimonials really highlight this important aspect of online learning, the potential for that individualized support and encouragement, In a traditional classroom, a student who's struggling might fall behind, but online, they can take the time they need, get that extra help, and build that confidence at their own pace.
That's so important.
Yeah, it is.
It's like leveling the playing field for students who might not thrive in a traditional setting.
It really is.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
Yeah, we have.
We looked at what sets Clad apart, how they're using technology to address specific needs in Zimbabwe,
Right.
and even dipped our toes into the world of parent testimonials.
You did.
But what I'm really curious about is, what does all of this mean for the future? Where is this all heading?
Yeah.
But before we jump into the future,
Right.
I think we need to take a closer look at the present.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, what are some of the potential downsides to relying too heavily on online education?
Yeah, that's important to consider, too.
Yeah, it's not all sunshine and roses, is it?
It's not. No, definitely some potential pitfalls that we need to be mindful of.
Okay, so let's talk about those challenges then.
All right, let's do it.
What are some of the things that could hold online learning back from truly reaching its full potential?
Well, for starters, we can't ignore the digital divide.
Right.
Not everyone in Zimbabwe has equal access to technology or reliable internet, especially in rural areas or low-income communities. If online learning is going to be truly transformative, it needs to be accessible to everyone, not just the people with resources.
That's a really important point. It's like if we're not careful, online learning could widen the gap between those who have and those who don't.
Absolutely. And it's not just about having a computer or a smartphone. It's reliable internet, the skills to actually use those devices, and even things like having electricity.
Oh, wow.
A quiet place to study. All these factors can impact a student's ability to succeed online.
Yeah, you're right. It's a much bigger issue than just providing laptops to every student. It's addressing these systemic inequalities that impact access to technology and education as a whole.
Exactly. And then there's the question of digital literacy.
Right.
Students and teachers need to be comfortable using technology effectively
Yeah.
for learning and teaching. So think about things like navigating online platforms, using different software, communicating effectively in a virtual environment, and even just being able to troubleshoot basic technical issues.
Yeah. It's a whole new set of skills that need to be learned.
It is.
It's not enough to just be tech savvy.
Right.
You need to be tech savvy in the context of education.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this requires investing in professional development for teachers
Yeah.
so they can confidently use those online platforms and create those engaging virtual learning experiences.
Right.
It's also about providing support for students, especially those who might not have grown up with technology.
It sounds like Clad is at least trying to address some of these challenges.
Yeah.
They have a whole section on their website dedicated to helping parents understand their role in online learning.
Okay.
And they offer technical support to both students and families.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, it's encouraging.
It shows that they're taking this holistic approach, recognizing that online learning success depends on this supportive ecosystem,
Yeah?
including students, teachers, parents, the whole community.
Yeah.
It's not just about the platform itself. It's about building a culture of support around it.
It's like building a bridge, not just a road.
Yeah, I like that.
You need both to get to where you want to go.
Exactly.
But even with all the support in the world,
Yeah.
isn't there a risk that online learning could lead to social isolation?
Yeah.
I mean, we're humans.
Mm-hmm.
We're social creatures. We need that interaction.
We do. We do. It's a valid concern.
Okay.
Some students thrive in a virtual environment, but others really need that face-to-face interaction to stay engaged and motivated.
Mm-hmm.
So it's something that needs to be carefully considered when designing these online programs.
So maybe online learning isn't meant to completely replace traditional education, but rather complement it.
That's exactly what a lot of educators are thinking.
Yeah.
This hybrid learning model.
Yeah.
Combining the best of both worlds.
Okay.
You might have synchronous online classes where students can interact with each other and the teacher in real time, but then also asynchronous components where they can work independently.
It's like finding that sweet spot between structure and flexibility,
Yeah,
individual learning and collaboration.
absolutely. And recognizing that there's no one-size-fits-all solution.
Right?
What works for one student might not work for another.
Yeah.
That's why personalization is so important and why online learning has this potential to be so transformative.
Okay, so we've talked about the digital divide,
Mm-hmm.
the need for digital literacy,
Yeah.
and the importance of social interaction.
Yeah.
Are there any other potential challenges we should be aware of?
One thing to think about is just the sheer potential for distractions.
Right.
When you're learning online, it's so easy to get sidetracked.
Oh, yeah.
Social media, games, the internet in general, it's all right there.
So tempting
So tempting.
all the time.
All the time.
Yeah.
It requires a lot of self-discipline and focus to stay on track,
Mm-hmm.
which can be hard, especially for younger students.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah.
Even as an adult, I have to set boundaries and create a dedicated workspace to be productive when I'm online.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And for younger students, it's even harder. It really requires parents and teachers to work together to create that structure, set those expectations, and help students develop those self-regulation skills.
It's like building a scaffolding around the learning process, providing support until they're strong enough to stand on their own.
Yeah, I love that analogy. And it brings us back to that idea of a supportive ecosystem. Online learning success really depends on everyone working together, the students, the teachers, parents, the whole community. It's a shared responsibility.
Okay, so we've explored some potential downsides of online learning.
Mm-hmm.
It's clearly not a perfect solution.
No.
There were real challenges to address.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to also remember the positive side.
Definitely.
We were talking about those parent testimonials earlier,
Yeah,
and I'd love to dig a little deeper into those.
absolutely. They offer really valuable insights into the real-world impact of online learning on students and families.
Like, for example, remember D. Chimarod's son?
Oh, yeah.
Not only did he improve his computer skills, but he also became more responsible and even started teaching his mother some of the math concepts he was learning.
Yeah, it's incredible. It highlights how online learning can foster a sense of ownership and empowerment.
Yeah.
When students are given the tools and the freedom to learn at their own pace,
Yeah.
they often surprise us with their resourcefulness and initiative.
And what about Gennaro's story?
Yeah.
Their son's reading improved dramatically, and his confidence just soared after joining Clad Jr.
Mm.
It sounds like online learning really unlocks something for him.
It really does. And, it speaks to the power of personalized learning.
Mm-hmm.
In a traditional classroom, a student who struggles with reading might get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
But online, they can receive tailored support and practice at their own pace
Right.
without feeling self-conscious or falling behind.
Yeah, it's like online learning allows students to bloom at their own pace without the pressure or comparisons that can sometimes exist in a traditional classroom.
Exactly. And it's not just about academic skills. Many parents also report that online learning has helped their kids develop valuable life skills like time management, self-discipline, problem solving, even communication skills.
Those are essential skills for success in any field, not just in school.
Yeah, exactly.
So it seems like online learning isn't just about acquiring knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
It's about developing a whole range of skills that will serve students well throughout their lives.
100%.
Yeah.
And let's not forget the benefits for the parents, too.
Right.
Many testimonials talk about the increased flexibility and convenience that online learning provides,
Yeah.
allowing families to create schedules that work for them and spend more quality time together.
It's like online learning isn't just transforming education.
Right.
It's transforming family life as well.
It really is.
And it's creating new opportunities for parents to be more involved in their children's education, to learn alongside them and celebrate their successes.
Yeah.
So we've talked about the challenges and the opportunities,
Yeah.
the potential downsides and the incredible upsides.
We have.
It's clear that online learning is this complex and evolving landscape,
It is.
but one that holds immense promise,
Yeah.
especially in a context like Zimbabwe.
Right.
But as we wrap up our deep dive,
Okay.
I'm curious to hear your final thoughts. What's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember about online education in Zimbabwe?
I think the most important thing to remember is that online learning, it's not a silver bullet,
Okay.
but it is a really powerful tool,
Mm-hmm.
and it has the potential to transform education for the better.
Right.
The key is to use it thoughtfully,
Okay.
to address those challenges head on,
Mm-hmm.
and to never lose sight of that human element at the heart of learning.
Yeah.
It's about empowering students, supporting teachers, and creating a learning environment that is equitable, engaging, and truly transformative.
Well said. Thanks for taking us on this deep dive into the world of online education in Zimbabwe.
My pleasure.
It's clear that this is a space to watch.
Yeah.
A space where innovation, equity, and the future of learning are all intertwined.
So we were talking about some of the challenges facing online learning in Zimbabwe, and I think a good place to start is with the digital divide.
Right, because even though Clad is doing some amazing things, they can't single-handedly solve all the infrastructural problems facing education.
Yeah, exactly. Like, not everyone has the same access to technology or the internet, especially in more rural areas.
Right, especially when we're talking about a country like Zimbabwe where internet access can be inconsistent.
Exactly. And it's not even just about having a computer or smartphone.
Yeah, what else is there?
Well, things like having a reliable internet connection,
Yeah.
knowing how to actually use the devices, even just having electricity.
Oh, yeah, electricity. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, those are all things that can really impact a student's ability to succeed with online learning.
It's kind of overwhelming when you think about all those different factors.
Yeah, it is. And then you have to layer on top of that the digital skills gap.
Right, because it's not enough to just have a device. You need to know how to use it.
Exactly.
Ah.
Like, can students navigate online platforms? Can they troubleshoot if something goes wrong? Those are skills that need to be taught.
And it's not just the students either.
No, teachers need training and support too.
Right, because they're the ones who have to create those engaging online learning experiences.
Exactly. And, it's good that Clad seems to be thinking about those things.
Yeah.
They have information on their website for parents and offer tech support to both students and families.
It's good that they're thinking holistically about it.
Yeah, because it's not just about the technology. It's about creating this supportive ecosystem that includes everyone, the students, the teachers, the parents, the community. Everyone needs to be on board for online learning to be successful.
But even if we solve the technology and the skills gap, isn't there still that concern about the social aspect of learning? Won't kids miss out on those interactions with their peers?
Well, yeah, that's a valid concern. Humans are social creatures, and we need that interaction to learn and grow. Some students might love the virtual environment, but others really need that face-to-face connection to stay engaged.
So how do you address that?
I think a lot of educators are thinking about creating a hybrid model.
What does that look like?
It's about combining the best of both worlds. So you might have some live online classes where students can interact with each other and the teacher in real time, but then also some independent work.
So it's about finding the right balance.
Yeah, and it's also about accepting that there's not one perfect solution for every student.
But doesn't that make things even more complicated?
Yeah, it's definitely more complex, but I think it's also more realistic. That's the beauty of online learning. It has the potential to be really transformative.
Okay, so we've got the digital divide, we've got the digital skills gap, we've got the social aspect. Anything else we need to think about?
Oh, one more thing, and it's a big one. Distractions.
Oh, yeah.
When you're learning online, it's so easy to get sidetracked.
You're telling me. I'm constantly battling the urge to check social media or watch videos when I should be working.
It's tough, right? And for younger students who haven't learned those self-regulation skills yet, it's even harder. So there needs to be structure.
Yeah, like clear expectations and probably some parental supervision, too.
Exactly. And, this brings us back to that idea of shared responsibility. Everyone needs to work together to make online learning successful. The students, the teachers, the parents, the whole community. It can't just be all on the student.
So we've explored some of the downsides. It's not all rosy, but there's also a whole other side to this story, right?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
We can't forget about those amazing parent testimonials. They really highlight the positive impact online learning is having.
Like, let's go back to Dicha Moradze. Remember, her son not only got better at using a computer, but became more responsible.
Right. And he was even teaching his mother some of the math he was learning.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and it just shows how empowering online learning can be. When you give students the tools and the freedom to learn at their own pace, they can do amazing things.
I was also really impressed by Ginayo's story about their son's reading improving so much.
Oh, yeah. That one is so inspiring. It really shows how effective personalized learning can be.
Yeah, it's like online learning allowed him to learn in a way that really worked for him.
Right. And in a traditional classroom, he might have struggled. It's not like online learning gave him the space to learn at his own speed without feeling self-conscious.
That's so important for kids who might not fit into the traditional mold.
Yeah, and it's not just academic skills. A lot of parents said their kids were learning valuable life skills like time management and problem solving too.
So it's not just about knowledge, it's about developing those skills that help you succeed in life.
Exactly. And we also have to mention the benefits for parents too.
Yeah.
Like the flexibility of online learning can really help families create schedules that work for them.
And it lets parents be more involved in their children's education, which is a huge plus.
Yeah, it's really a win-win for everyone involved.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked about the challenges, we've talked about the opportunities, and we've heard those incredible stories. It's clear that online learning is really complex, but also super promising, especially in a place like Zimbabwe. It's interesting, isn't it, this whole conversation about online learning in Zimbabwe. It keeps coming back to this idea of connection.
Oh, connection, how so?
Well, like we talked about internet connectivity, obviously,
Right.
but also the need to connect what kids are learning to their own lives, their experiences,
Mm-hmm.
and how important it is for teachers to feel supported
Yeah.
as they figure out this whole new way of teaching. It seems like that feeling of connection, it's essential for making online learning work.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a really good point. It's like the technology is just a tool. The important thing is how we use it
Exactly.
to connect people, build relationships, all that.
Right.
But, thinking about those connections makes me wonder about the students who might get left behind.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We talked about the digital divide,
Mm-hmm.
the lack of access to technology, the internet.
Right.
But what about the kids who have access but face other kinds of barriers?
You're right. That's a really important point. It's easy to assume if a child has a device and internet, they're all set. But it's way more complicated than that.
Yeah, what kinds of things are we talking about?
Well, what about students with disabilities, for example?
Okay.
Does the platform have accessibility features like screen readers or closed captioning?
Right.
What about kids who are struggling with learning differences?
Mm.
Do they have the resources they need
Yeah.
to succeed online?
It's like we need to think about accessibility much more broadly, It's
Yeah.
not just physical access to technology, it's also about access to support systems and resources that help everyone learn.
You're exactly right. And it's not just individual students either.
Okay.
What about schools and communities without reliable electricity or internet infrastructure? Are there alternative solutions like offline materials or community learning centers?
Right.
It's about getting creative
Yeah.
and finding what works in each specific situation.
It sounds like creating a truly equitable online learning system
Yeah.
takes a lot of creativity, flexibility, and, a willingness to think outside that traditional box.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it also requires this commitment to constantly evaluating and improving things. We can't just assume that what works somewhere else will automatically work here.
Right. Like, we need to really understand the specific needs
Yes,
of the community.
100%. We need to listen to feedback, gather data, and be willing to adjust our approach as we go.
That makes sense. But I'm also curious, beyond those practical things,
Yeah.
are there like broader cultural factors that might influence how successful online learning is in Zimbabwe?
That's a great question. One thing that jumps out is the importance of community support. In many African cultures, learning is seen as this communal activity, something that involves the whole family, the extended community even.
Yeah.
So it's super important to involve parents and community leaders, make sure they understand the benefits of online learning, and get them on board with the changes.
It's like building a bridge between the traditional ways of learning
Yeah.
and this new digital world.
Exactly. And it's recognizing that online learning can't just be about individual achievement.
Right.
It needs to benefit the whole community.
So it's not just about kids on computers. It's about using online learning to strengthen communities,
Yes.
empower families, that kind of thing.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes online learning in Zimbabwe so fascinating.
Yeah.
It's not just about technology. It's about people. It's about culture. And it's about making sure everyone has a chance to learn and grow.
I love that. Thanks for taking us on this deep dive into the world of online learning in Zimbabwe. It's clear that a lot is happening, and there's so much potential for positive change. And for our listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought. This is definitely a topic that's worth paying attention to, because it's not just about Zimbabwe, it's about the future of learning globally.